Russian warships have approached the borders of the United States. They've landed in Cuba, armed with hypersonic nuclear weapons. Tensions are rising with the raging war in Ukraine and US involvement, and Russia advances major pieces forward in this deadly chess match. Could this move spark a major war, dragging the US into a global conflict? Watch to the end, because we will give you the ultimate guide on how to prepare for a potential World War III. In recent weeks, there has been significant attention and concern surrounding the arrival of Russian naval ships to Cuba, which has sparked both international interest and speculation about the implications of such a move. This development comes amid heightened tensions between Russia and the West, particularly over the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. On June 6, 2024, the Cuban government announced that 4 Russian naval vessels, including a nuclear-powered submarine, would be arriving in Havana for a visit between June 12 and June 17. The Cuban Ministry of Foreign Affairs emphasized that this visit was part of historically friendly relations between Cuba and Russia, and assured that the ships did not carry nuclear weapons and posed no threat to the region. The Russian ships included the frigate Gorshkov, the nuclear-powered submarine Kazan, the fleet oil tanker Pashin, and the salvage tug Nikolai Chika. This announcement followed reports from US officials who had been tracking Russian warships and aircraft expected to arrive in the Caribbean for a military exercise, which they described as a Russian show of force in response to Western military support for Ukraine. The US officials noted that the exercise was part of a broader Russian response to US support for Ukraine and an effort by Russian President Vladimir Putin to demonstrate his Navy's global power projection capabilities. The Russian naval visit to Cuba has been viewed with concern by some, given the historical context of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, when the Soviet Union attempted to place nuclear missiles on the island. Oh, the Cuban Missile Crisis. That was a fun time, wasn't it? Just kidding. It was actually a pretty tense period in history. So, the Cuban Missile Crisis was a 13-day standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union in October 1962. It all started when the US discovered that the Soviets were secretly installing nuclear missiles in Cuba, which is just a stone's throw away from Florida. President John F. Kennedy was not amused, to say the least. He announced a naval blockade of Cuba to prevent any more missiles from being delivered. This led to a tense situation where the world was on the brink of nuclear war. After a few days of negotiations and some tense moments, the Soviets agreed to remove their missiles from Cuba in exchange for a promise from the US not to invade the island. The crisis was resolved, and the world breathed a collective sigh of relief. The Cuban Missile Crisis is often considered one of the most dangerous moments in history, as it brought the world closer to nuclear war than any other event. It also had a lasting impact on the relationship between the US and the Soviet Union, and led to a number of arms control agreements in the years that followed. The timing of today's Russian naval visit to Cuba also coincides with increased military activity by Russia in the region. Reports indicate that Russia plans to increase its naval and air activity near the United States this summer as part of routine maneuvers in the lead-up to a global naval exercise in the fall. This has led to speculation about Russia's intentions and the potential for further escalation of tensions with the West. Despite the assurances from the Cuban government and the apparent routine nature of the naval visit, the presence of Russian warships in the Caribbean has raised concerns among US officials and the international community. The US has been closely monitoring the situation, and while they do not view the Russian ships as a direct threat, the US Navy will be keeping a watchful eye on the exercises. The Russian naval visit to Cuba also highlights the ongoing relationship between Russia and Cuba, which has become closer in recent years. In May 2023, Moscow signed several agreements with Havana to cover sugar and rum production, wheat, and oil shipments to the island. This cooperation has been seen as an effort by Russia to buffer the impacts of the war in Ukraine and to strengthen its ties with Cuba. The arrival of Russian naval ships in Cuba has generated significant interest and concern, given the current geopolitical climate and the historical context of the Cuban Missile Crisis. While the Cuban government has been clear in stating that the visit is part of historically friendly relations and poses no threat to the region, the presence of Russian warships in the Caribbean has raised questions about Russia's intentions and the potential for further escalation of tensions with the West. The situation is being closely monitored by the US and the international community, and it remains to be seen how it will develop in the coming weeks and months. Are you prepared for World War III? If not, here's some basic advice on what to do with this information. First things first, don't panic. Panic leads to chaos, and chaos leads to poor decision-making. So take a deep breath, grab a cup of tea or something stronger, and let's get down to business. Stock up on essentials. This includes food, water, medication, and toilet paper. You never know when the apocalypse will hit, and you don't want to be caught with your pants down. Literally. Learn some survival skills. Brush up on your gardening, hunting, and fishing skills. If the world goes to *T, you'll need to know how to fend for yourself. Get fit. War is no time for couch potatoes. Start working out so you can outrun those pesky zombies. I mean, enemy soldiers. Build a bunker. If you have the means, consider constructing a bunker. It's the ultimate in apocalypse chic. Make friends with your neighbors. In times of crisis, community is key. Get to know your neighbors so you can band together and form a post-apocalyptic street gang. Learn self-defense. Whether it's karate, Krav Maga, or good old-fashioned street fighting, knowing how to defend yourself is crucial. Stay informed. Keep up with the news, but don't believe everything you hear. Misinformation is rampant in times of war. Have a plan. Know where you'll go and what you'll do if things go south. Having a plan can help reduce anxiety and increase your chances of survival. Stay positive. Remember, laughter is the best medicine, unless you're actually sick, in which case you should probably see a doctor. Don't forget your sense of humor. In the face of adversity, a good laugh can be a powerful weapon. So there you have it, folks. Follow these tips, and you'll be ready to face World War III with a smile on your face and maybe a few scars on your body. Good luck.